to the floor, right, wins this battle. And that's Sophie Cunningham. Wow, I thought Van Loo grabbed her by the neck. Sophie, thankfully and fortunately, let that one go. They both got up smiling.
Sophie Cunningham broke her silence after the most controversial loss of the season, and her 6 words will give you chills. The Indiana Fever just lost to the worst team in the WNBA, the Los Angeles Sparks, for the 2nd time this season. But this wasn't just any loss. This was a heartbreaking 89-87 defeat that ended their 3-game winning streak, complete with dirty plays, terrible officiating, and Sophie getting grabbed around the neck with no foul called. Her reaction? A smile and a laugh. What exactly did Sophie say after the game that changes everything about how we see this team's fight? If you support Sophie and the Fever, then comment below, Spicy Sophie. Let's go. We have a fun group. We have a goofy group. But sometimes you kind of need to get pissed off a little bit and dial in. I think that's what you saw today. Picture this. The Indiana Fever were riding the highest wave of their season just days ago. They had just crushed 3 of the league's top teams in a row. First, they beat Paige Buchers and the Dallas Wings in a statement game. Then, they absolutely destroyed the Minnesota Lynx to capture their first Commissioner's Cup championship. But the crown jewel? They completely dominated AJ Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces in a performance that had everyone talking about their championship potential. Howard looking backdoor for Mitchell. Not there. Shot clock down to 7. McDonald feed inside, and it's Howard for 2. It's good. And let's keep in mind Caitlin Clark was injured all this time. Their superstar, who made everything work, was watching from the sidelines with a left groin injury. This was already her 10th missed game of the season, and you could see the difference immediately. The Fever's entire identity shifted without Clark running the show. Their pace slowed down dramatically. The ball movement that made them so dangerous just wasn't there anymore. Aaliyah Boston, who dominates when she gets touches in the paint, wasn't getting nearly enough passes to play her natural style. This is a game that would have been great to have Caitlin Clark back in the second half. Just an extra playmaker on the court doing the things that Caitlin Clark does. But I'm glad, if it's rest or no rest. Last time she came back early, and guess what happened? She was overcompensating, even if she's 70-80%. And she ended up getting another injury and being out twice as long instead of just holding off till she was 100%. And also, coming back for one Sparks game. But here's the crazy part. The Fever were still favored to win this game. ESPN gave them a 72.9% chance of victory. Vegas had them favored by 6.5 points. This was supposed to be an easy win against one of the worst teams in the league. The Sparks came into this game with a terrible 5-13 record. The Fever were missing Clark. Sure, Dyrus Dantas was playing for her country in the FIBA America. And Dana Bonner? She just quit on the team entirely, but they were still expected to handle business. Indiana Fever fans, we came up short. We lost in the final seconds of this game, 89-87. We were up by 6 points with 5 minutes left, and also up by 4 points with 1:43. The cruel irony hit different though. The Sparks had already beaten the Fever once this season, when they were at full strength. Now here they were, undermanned and struggling, facing the same team that had embarrassed them before. The final score tells the whole story. 89-87. 2 points. The Fever missed their last 5 shots, including 4 in the final minute. They had championship dreams just days ago. Now those dreams felt fragile without their superstar leading the charge. But the score was just the beginning of what made this loss so devastating. The real controversy was about to unfold. We should have won this game. There were inconsistencies in the officiating. Wait until you see the second half, and I have everything. Here's where the night took a dark turn that had Coach Stephanie White seeing red. The game was close. Tensions were high, and then the referees started making calls that left everyone speechless. You could feel the frustration building as the officials seemed to lose control of what should have been a straightforward game. I don't get it. Breanna Stewart, AJ Wilson. Wait until you see what they did for Kelsey Plum tonight. They get all the calls. Touch fouls, anything. And guess what happens? Aaliyah Boston, the best center in the game. And guess what happens to her? She gets called for every touch foul and ends up in foul trouble this entire season and is still putting up MVP-type numbers. What happens with Caitlin Clark? Have you ever seen her get a touch foul? Phantom call? No. The physicality, just the WNBA when it comes to Caitlin Clark, but anybody else, the physicality disappears. And it's foul after foul after foul in the second half. Julie Van Loo grabbed Sophie Cunningham around the neck during a loose ball scramble. This wasn't some minor contact. This was a clear foul that should have been called immediately. The grab happened right in front of the officials. Yet, the whistle stayed silent. You could see Sophie's reaction in real time. That smile, that laugh. But this wasn't because it was funny. Sophie knew the refs weren't protecting anyone out there. The scene painted itself perfectly. Sophie getting grabbed around the face and neck. No call. Meanwhile, the referees were spending excessive time reviewing clean defensive plays. Sydney Carlson made a perfect block that got called a foul initially. The refs had to review it for what felt like forever just to overturn an obvious mistake. But actual fouls? Those went uncalled all night long. This is what I was talking about with Sophie Cunningham. Look at this. She literally grabbed her around her neck and they called this a jump ball and then threw her down the next play. These calls happened in the final minutes when every possession mattered most. The Fever were fighting for their lives, trying to close out a game they should have won easily. Instead, they were battling both the Sparks and the officials. You could see the pattern becoming clear. The double standard that's been plaguing the Fever all season long. The inconsistent officiating wasn't just frustrating, it was dangerous. When you don't protect players from contact, like what happened to Sophie, you're sending a message that anything goes. The referees seemed to be making calls that favored the Sparks while leaving Fever players vulnerable to whatever came their way. And then threw her down the next play. And then Aaliyah Boston, like I said, she didn't touch her. They put her in foul trouble all season long. They're just calling stuff to call stuff. The ref made this game about them. Aaliyah Boston again, she's an all-star player. Look at these hits. Good thing Caitlin Clark didn't play because it was just a sloppy basketball game between the officials and the Los Angeles Sparks. Look at this. They called this a foul instead of a block. And then there's Aaliyah Boston again. That's 3 fouls where she didn't touch anybody. And that's our best player, and wonder why we lose this game. Michaela Timpson, watch these 2 calls in a row. She didn't do anything. She got hit on that one, and they called a foul on her.